Good morning, brothers and sisters. Happy 4th of July weekend. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself around a campfire that you put out last night, or the embers of a campfire that you put out last night. I'll try to be short this morning because I know how important these times where we can get away and just enjoy times with our family, how important they are. But hopefully next week we will open up our building, and for those who feel comfortable, we will have services within the building. Of course, we do reserve the right to postpone again. We have no idea which way this pandemic is going to go and the difficulties that come with that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of you that are chomping at the bit to come back into services. In fact, very few have asked me one way or another what we are going to be doing. But I'm very much looking to open up the building, and that's why we have it here. And we spend a lot of time here during the week, and it's surely something that all of us should be able to enjoy. But I don't want to guilt anybody into attendance. My approach throughout this entire time has been, if one person really feels uncomfortable, then let's not eat the meat. And so the idea is kind of like the Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all. But we'll see how this goes. And next week, if we do open up and people come and they feel uncomfortable with this after they've actually come for a Sunday, then we might postpone for a little bit longer, or we might just be able to start up. Normal has been very difficult, and the custom that we've had throughout my entire lifetime of just coming together for fellowship without any concerns of anything has now become a custom of where you watch me on YouTube. And this has become the custom. I'm thrilled when I see how many of you have decided to watch and to listen to what I have to say. But as we go through this, we will slowly but surely, kind of venture as we're travelers to decide what is best for us. But we'll have the building all set up next week, so everybody will be social distanced. If you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. If you're uncomfortable with somebody not wearing a mask, then stay away from them. We'll see how that all goes. But we'll be social distancing, so that I think we should be able to provide you with a place that you will feel very comfortable with as you come. This week I'm going to start a 2-week service or 2-week series, so to speak, on really where I have been throughout this period of time. I have found myself having to pull my bootstraps up more and more throughout this period of time. Last week we saw Christopher, the last couple of weeks we saw Christopher, and the joy of seeing this young man vibrant in his entire life before him. Christopher's been a wise young man, as you can tell. His springtime of life, he planted really good seeds, and now we're able to listen to him as he harvests the beautiful truths of Galatians to us. But you also see the joy and the happiness in his face. Now this week you come and you see somebody that's actually going into the winter of their life, or maybe late fall, however you might want to look at it. But I think you find yourself during these periods of time deciding how you're going to read the scriptures and what you see in the scriptures. And I think as you go through these, you see things differently as things go on. While we were at the beach recently, Michelle, a number of years ago, got these things in her eyes called floaters, and so we took her to a doctor, and they said there's nothing to be concerned about in case you see flashes. And if you see these flashes, then it might be retina problems or your retina's detaching. So she started seeing flashes. So, you're at the beach and you're having these difficulties of flashes in your eyes and the difficulties of some other complications that came. And so we had her at the doctor this week, and she discovered that she has cataracts, and that's one of the reasons that she's having these flashes, and one of the reasons that she's really not been able to focus or see as well as she used to be able to see. And it all comes down to this simple idea of where Solomon looks at life from his perspective, and he's older in life in the book of Ecclesiastes. He's like going back through his life, he's reflecting on things, he's changing things, but he finds a lot of vanity in life and a lot of things that perplex him. And one of the things that he talks about is growing old. And he says, remember your Creator when you are young, before the days of trouble come and the years when you say, I find no pleasure in them. When you get old, the light of the sun, moon, and the stars will grow dark. The rain clouds will never seem to go away. At that time, your arms will shake and your legs will become weak. Your teeth will fall out so you cannot chew, and your eyes will not see clearly. Your ears will be deaf to the noise in the streets, and you will barely hear the millstone grinding grain. You'll wake up when a bird starts singing, but you will barely hear singing. You will fear high places. You will be afraid to go for a walk. Your hair will soon become white like the flowers. And surely I don't want to go through all of what Solomon had to say, but you get the gist of what he is talking about. In my own life during this period of time, I have found myself going into a place of fretting. And I think when you take a look at old age or young age, wherever you're at in life, it's easy to fall into this trap of fretting as you go through life. And so when you read through the Psalms, and one of the things that I found myself doing during this period of time is reflecting with David and the other writers of the Psalms. It seems like they always have something to say that kind of relates to where you are at in your life. And what we're going to look at today is a verse that David throws in Psalm 37. And Psalm 37 is one of those Psalms where David is a little bit more seasoned in life. In fact, he says, I have been young and now I am old. In other words, he is in a winter of his life. And in this winter of his life, he wants this... He doesn't want what Solomon defines. He wants something different from his life. He doesn't want people to see him as somebody that finds no pleasure in life anymore. And so his plea to God is, or a simple request as another traveler that's gone through life, that God will hear this request. Spare me, Lord. Let me recover and be filled with happiness again before my death. So we find that David, as he's writing in Psalm 37 about fretting and the command that he gives us on fretting, is that he wants us to be able to see certain things from God's perspective, and there are certain things that he wants us to overcome. We're not allowed to even play in these fields. As a traveler, these are not fields that we're allowed to go into. You have to avoid these fields. As all you have to do is read through Pilgrim's Progress, and you'll see Bunyan constantly remind us, don't go there, stay on the path. And so David wants us to understand this as he's writing this psalm, and it's important for him to understand this, and it's important for him to tell us this. Like in his old age now, he is telling us something that's very important for us to decide in our own life. I think most of us watched with kind of shock and maybe horror when Kobe Bryant lost his life with his daughter and a number of other individuals in a plane crash or in a helicopter crash. And I read many things during that period of time because sports is one of my diversions. And in a book that he wrote, A Letter to My Younger Self, he says this: the most important advice I can give to you is to make sure your parents remain parents and not managers. And he ended this by saying, trust me, setting things up right from the beginning will avoid a ton of tears and heartache, some of which remains to this day. Of course, when you're somebody like Kobe Bryant, you have a lot of this money, and your parents are trying to tell you what to do and how the difficulties that'll come your way. And he's simply going back to his younger self saying, I wish I would have done things a little bit differently. And I think when David is writing to us here, he's basically telling us, I hope you do things just a little bit differently in your life. And he's saying this because of the importance of not fretting, the importance of having a disposition that trusts God through all the difficulties that you go through in life. Surely Sarah is one of these individuals that has this in life. She's got all these difficulties that go on in her life, and she finds no pleasure in life. At 65, she goes with her husband, and she finds that she's not having a child, and if you read through, she's not a happy person. She's fretting all the time. She's trying to figure all these things out as she goes through this. She's a very beautiful woman. She's somebody that people just have their eye on, but there's something within her that just isn't right. And it really comes with this cause and effect that we look at when we go through the Bible. She's just filled with sorrow. She's filled with trouble. She's filled with this difficulty in life. Solomon will write, sorrow is better than laughter, for sadness has a refining influence on us all. So this sadness that she's in has a purpose, and it's not easy for her to be able to see this, but she has to go through a long period where she is going to have to go through this sadness or this time of being barren when she really feels, and Abraham along with her, feel that God has promised that their seed will be like the sands of the earth. So they try a few different ways to get this to happen, and God's not involved in any of those decisions. They're just decisions that they are doing until we finally find this time where Sarah is 90 and Abraham is 99 years old, or 89, somewhere around there. And we look at these two figures, and there's some strangers that show up. Some individuals feel they're angels. Some feel it's actually a divine intervention where Christ is actually showing up at this period of time. But he tells Abraham that next year Sarah is going to have a child, and Sarah, of course, laughs like a fool during this period of time. She has been fretting for the longest period of time now, and this fretting has just taken over her life. And so now when he says Sarah's going to have a baby, she just, it's like foolish laughter. Like, what does he know? I'm an old woman. I'm beyond my time. So for 37 years, you just find that this difficulty was going on in their life. And now all of a sudden, something happens. And something happens in such a great way in her life that her last 37 years are filled with laughter. And they're filled with laughter because she doesn't really have to fret. She does have her moments of not trusting the Lord during this 37 years, but by and large, she has Isaac at this period of time. She has given birth to a child. She has nursed a child at 90 years old. And the laughter that she has now is pure laughter. The laughter that she has as somebody that fretted and mocked God in what he was saying was going to happen in her life was the laughter of a fool. But now it's the laughter of somebody that has actually had a cause that has affected them. And the cause was, of course, her having Isaac. And she writes, God has made me to laugh so that all that hear will laugh with me. She waited for 25 years for this laughter to come into her life. And, it's interesting because the cause was a child and the effect was laughter. The cause was really a fulfilled promise, but a mercy that came with that fulfilled promise that made her laugh. I think most of us, no matter where we're at, whether we are in the summer, spring, fall, or winter of our lives, really just want to have a moment of laughter in our life. We want to have the pleasures of life, and the difficulty of life is that it's always throwing troubles and sorrows and problems our way, and it's so easy for us to start fretting and start being discontent in our life, and this is something that David wants us to eliminate from our life totally and completely. He doesn't give us any options in this, and it's really been very impressive to me, and it's been very encouraging to me that through the pen of David from the throne of God is God saying, Michael, no more fretting. Michael, no more discontent. I am in control. You might look at all these other things, but I have you in mind. I have providentially decided for certain things in your life. And of course, David in Psalm 37 reflects on other individuals being blessed that don't follow God and other individuals that barely follow God. And he sees all these people and he finds that he allowed all of these other providential workings to affect him in his own life and his trust of God. In Habakkuk it says, "It is not time for the message to come true, but that time is coming. And the message or promise will come true. It may seem to take a long time, but be patient and wait for it, because it will surely come and it will not be delayed." So when the fullness of time comes, it will happen. During that period of time, what we are to do is to rest in the Lord, or actually get to a place in our life where that's what we are. You've heard me many times say that one of the things that I live by is God does not give us overcoming life, but he gives us life as we overcome. So you can be overcome with fretting and worry and all the things that come with that and think that those are the things that you really need to be concentrating on, or you can rest in the Lord. And I know it's easy for me to say rest in the Lord, but I think most of you know that I think all of us have gone through enough in our life that we wouldn't be so foolish to tell somebody to just rest in the Lord. The mercy of happiness or laughter that God bestows upon his children to encourage them in their service is something that Abraham and Sarah want us to share with them. And there is a certain sense when you read the story and she's laughing and she has this, that you laugh with her. And that's what she wants us to know, that I laughed, and by me laughing it caused other people to laugh. It reminds me of the song, I started a joke which started the whole world laughing, and the idea is there that you're like a fool and then everybody's laughing at you, you, but Sarah here is telling us that there's a time in your life where everybody sees the mercy and goodness of God finally come into your life, and it's like a whirlwind, and when it comes into your life, it makes people laugh. That's not to say it might also mean other people are laughing at you when these things are going on. How's she going to be able to take care of a child? She's 90 years old, but she was able to do this for 37 years. So, and shortly after she gets this promise, we find somebody else giving the one eye to Sarah. But when laughter and happiness does come, and this is not the laughter of fool, God has to be acknowledged and praised as the author of this laughter. And when mercy has been long deferred, and I think this is what David is trying to get across, it's so much more welcome in our life. So his point that we'll get to as we go through this is all the evils of fretting and all the beauties of mercy and laughter when they do come. It not only adds to our present comfort, but it changes the dispositions of those who really care for us. It's nice when somebody has something really good happen in their life, and it just produces this laughter or this happiness in their life, and you are happy for them. Now, if you're fretting or you're filled with envy or jealousy, you're not going to have those feelings at all. Your disposition is something that you have to decide in your own life what it's going to be. I can tell that, some children come out this way or some people get strong, and I those things are true. But by and large, the disposition that we have in our life is something that we decide what type of a disposition we are going to have. And this is one of the things that David challenges us in his old age, kind of like when Kobe challenges people, when you're young, make these decisions so that when you're older, you won't have to deal with what I had to deal with. And I think the same is true here. The idea that David is trying to get across to us is that when you go through life and this mercy that finally comes into your life, it just adds to not only your life, but it adds to so many other people. And so his point is that you have to change your disposition. You have to change the way that you look at life. You have to change the way that you have a relationship with God. They laugh with us. Laughter and happiness is much needed today, and I think it's very contagious to have in life. The joy of watching somebody just laugh from a blessing or a mercy or a favor from on high, and they recognize that it is a favor from on high, and you can laugh with them, enjoy with them, and also it encourages you to be able to see that these things do happen in life. They see mercy and they rejoice in God's power and goodness, and it encourages them too to trust in God. So when we go back to Sarah's foolish laughter, we find that foolish laughter, that what do they know what they're talking about? And the Bible actually says she laughs, and they say, why was Sarah laughing? And she goes, well, I wasn't laughing. It was all born in this fretting. It was all born in the person and the disposition that she had by this period of time in her life. And that's the fear that I look at when I take a look at when you grow older. And David, as he grows older, he wants to make sure that don't let me just fall into this trap of this, but help me to be a jovial and happy individual. We have a picture in our house when you come in. And it's a picture of an old sailor, and he's sitting there, and these children are all climbing all over him. And it's just a picture of complete and utter joy and happiness that the children find great comfort in being around this individual. And it was always a challenge for me. And we have another picture as you go past that picture, and the name of that picture is called Making Hay, and it's a man and his wife in the field, and he's like leaning behind her. And it's also a picture that, it's a reminder to me. Make sure that as you grow older, Michael, that these are things that you have in your life. This is the disposition that you have in your life. And so in Psalm 37:8, David writes, "Fret not thyself, it tendeth only to evil doing." The same psalm that David expresses that he is in the last years as a traveler, and its value comes from this experience that he has as a traveler. He's passionate in forbidding fretfulness and discontent. Fret not thyself. Don't fret. It tendeth only to evil things. So it's actually like a command that David has to us. And so when I read it, however you read the scriptures, but I always try to read the scriptures as if they're just talking to me personally. And it's like, don't fret, Michael. You get to the situation, this is the situation you find yourself in. Trust the Lord. Don't fret. Ultimate effort, ultimate trust, but in the end, you have to trust the Lord and what he is going to do through this. So the value that comes with being a traveler is great. So when we look at David at this period of time, we find David saying, make sure, God, that I keep a happy disposition. Make sure that I hold on to this disposition, no matter what I am in. And so it's whether it's age or whether it's sorrow, whether it's sickness, whether it's the troubles that you have in life. I don't know what all you're dealing with. I can imagine that you're all struggling in many areas of your life during this pandemic and the difficulties that come with social distancing. But the idea is that God from heaven is saying, hush your discontent, Michael. Rest your mind on my promises, Michael. From God's heart to David's pen to my soul. I have found myself over the last couple months waking up every morning and offering my soul to God. And I offer my soul to God, and the soul is your mind, will, and emotions, or your thoughts, your choices, your feelings. But I've said, God, I want to anchor these in your mercies, in your goodness. So I wake up every morning, I say, here's my soul, and I'm going to anchor it down into these things. So my thoughts and my feelings, my choices, my soul, the very person of who I am anchoring with you. And so when the winds and the difficulties and the problems come into my life, I'm going to hold on to that and not let that pull free. Now, we all know that during those periods of time, our feelings are tugging us this way, our emotions are tugging us this way, or our choices, all these things are moving on our soul and trying to capture our soul. And surely the dark side is after our soul, and surely it's something that we have to make sure that the disposition of our soul is strong. So when it's interesting, when you take a look at what David is saying here, he says, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. I think here when you look at this, there's those words that come like a missile from my subconscious with that idea. God does not give me overcoming life. He gives me life as I overcome. I have to do the overcoming of fretting. I have to make that to be the disposition of my life. And no matter when it is, it seems like every day there's something, some weakness that you might have, or maybe it wasn't a weakness before. I remind myself oftentimes of when I was young and I had I just stepped out and did whatever it was. But as you get older, there's so many more things that you didn't really think that you would have to deal with. And I think most of you can understand that even if you're in your 30s or 40s, there's all these other things that start coming, and all these things that you brought into your life that are good things, but all of them come with the cares and the difficulties that come with life. So when you have anger, and especially when you have anger against the arrangements of providence. And I think from what most of the individuals that I've read, what David's talking about here, he's talking about that, this anger that you have against how providence is allowing some of the ungodly to prosper. Some individuals are getting away with things. And we want justice, and we want justice in our way, but God simply says, I will bring justice in my way, and that should not be your concern. Your concern should not be what I am doing. Your concern should just be your relationship with me, to keep a relationship with me. If you somehow or another start telling God you're doing this wrong or you're doing that wrong, it's really the definition of insanity, isn't it? The wicked succeeding should be a matter of indifference to us, or what something going on in somebody else's life. What does it matter to me what's going on in their life? I got enough problems in my own life. So never allow yourself to start questioning the goodness of God. If they succeed, if they don't succeed, without God, that should not be an issue that we have. The idea is, from David's perspective, is don't fret. Don't fret. Don't fret. This is only going to cause you harm. And so we have to decide in our life, is this going to be how we are going to live our life? You succeed with or without God. You have defeats with God. Somebody else is succeeding without God. Whatever you do, just don't fret over it. Anger, love to be our companions. And I think as we go through life, we realize how important it is for us to not allow anger to be our companion, or to allow fretting to be our companion when we go through life. Why not fretting? Why not anger as we go through life? It causes harm. It's as simple as can be. Let no reason or circumstance lead you to this action, is what David is saying. Whatever your reasons are to be fretting, or to be angry with God, or to be angry with others, or to have the woe is me attitude, don't let any of these things do it. It only opens the door to us indulging in this murmuring, complaining disposition that will justify you being your own providence. And if we look at Abraham and Sarah, surely we can see that all the decisions that they were making in their life was really based on this frustration or this anger, the way providence was working in their life. They just didn't, or surely Sarah didn't want to wait for 25 years to have this. It was not in her wheelhouse that that's how long it would take. But it would take that long of a period of time for God to slowly but surely mold Abraham into the man that God wanted Abraham to be. And sometimes you have to be molded into this person before you can handle what the goodness of God or the mercy of God is going to give to you. So David tells us to tremble at a disposition that is created from discontent, and it will only cause you harm. So I'm hoping today that as you're sitting wherever you're sitting or driving in your car, wherever you might be, ask yourself, what is my disposition? Where do I find myself today? How do I look at my own life during this period of time? Is this discontent harming me? Are other people being harmed by this? Ask God to bring laughter back into your life. I ask him to bring the laughter and the peace and the joy of resting in him, and to have confidence and trust in him. This is the thing that you should be working on. You should wake up each and every day. And as I mentioned to you, for me it was just saying, I got to anchor. You would think, after all these years that I would have so many things figured out. And it's nice that when I read David, I realize that life is constantly fighting you. It's constantly trying to get you to relax your relationship with divine. Relax your relationship with the divine provinces. Relax your relationship to the divine promises. Relax your relationship to the disposition that God wants you to be. And so hopefully as you continue your 4th of July weekend, you'll decide anger is not going to be here anymore. And it will not be my companion as I go through life. Fretting will not be my companion, God. Today, it's a new lease on life. And today I will say to you, my heart and my soul are yours. My thoughts, my will, my emotions, my feelings, they're yours. And help them to reflect who you are. Help me to be a light to who you are. And help me not to be a light to what my flesh or the world or the devil wants me to be. And so maybe next week we'll all see each other face to face, and we'll be able to continue this simple little story of how important it is for us to make sure that we have a disposition that is pleasing to God. And may his grace, mercy, and peace be with you all. Amen.